Oh, we all come into this world crying, but it doesn't mean that we're weak, it just means we're alive. Yeah, we're alive. Oh, somewhere, somehow we all learn to hide it. Don't show the fire in your soul, just keep it inside. Yeah, keep it inside. Oh, hiding away in the darkness. Oh, but the sunlight, it fights to get in. Break down the walls that I built for myself. I'm so vulnerable.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I am Ariel Silver, the program manager over at the SONA Foundation, and you are tuning into our Fireside chat for the month of November 2025, getting to the end of the year. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I've been wanting us to get into this topic actually for a while. 2025. There's been a lot going on. I guess maybe every year has a lot going on. And today's topic is survivor's guilt. Very grateful to our songwriter guests who Terra Lopez will introduce. And I will just let you know about the SONA Foundation in case you are tuning in for the first time. We are an organization, a nonprofit organization created by songwriters for songwriters, and we create programs and resources, emergency grant funding for songwriters and composers. You can find out more about what we do over at sonafoundation.com. We are just launching, actually, this week, a new series of guest columnists talking about various topics of creativity and wellness, songwriting, and mental health, things like that. So we have a new page on our website. If you've already been to the website before and poked around, you'll find something new over there. So I encourage you to go over to sonafoundation.com. And the best way to find out about our upcoming events and programs is to subscribe to our newsletter. So right on the website, you can just add your name and your email address and hit subscribe, and we will send you an occasional letter letting you know every month what's going on here, including what the latest topics are for our Fireside Chat series. We do this program, this Fireside Chat conversation with songwriters and composers around various topics of mental health with our partners over at Backline, which is a wonderful organization. And Terra Lopez is the community manager. She is a songwriter and podcast producer and host herself, and does just such a beautiful job at facilitating these conversations every time. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Terra onto the screen, and she can tell you a little bit about Backline. Meanwhile, if you want to reach out to us over at the SONA Foundation, just email hello@sonafoundation.com, or just put a comment in the chat, and I'll be watching the chat during this conversation. So I'm glad you're here. And let's bring on Terra. Hi, Terra.
Hey, Ariel. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, good afternoon, actually. I am on the East Coast this time, normally coming to you from Los Angeles, but I am in the beautiful state of Vermont at the moment. So good morning to you on the West Coast.
Amazing. I'm really excited for this conversation. So
yeah, I'm going to pull myself off of the screen so you can just take it away and we can get into the talking. So thanks for being here.
Hey, everyone. How's it going? I am Terra Lopez, community manager and head of artist partnerships at Backline. And as Ariel mentioned, Backline's a resource hub for the music industry. We've teamed up with the SONA Foundation for another very special Fireside Chat to talk all about mental health for songwriters, and specifically today about survivor's guilt, what it is, how grief and loss can affect creativity, relationships, and much, much more. And so I'm going to just introduce our incredible guest today. We have Rees Shad, has been crafting musical narratives for decades since his debut album, Anderson, Ohio in 1994. Rees has been on a quest to push the boundaries of musical storytelling. He has over 17 albums over 3 decades. That's incredible. And he's gained a reputation as a wordsmith to watch. We also have Judy Kass. She grew up in a family of musicians, spending her teens and 20s making music. In 2008, she founded the community program Music Works, which provides talented students from low-income families the opportunity to receive private music lessons and mentoring. She has numerous songwriting awards under her belt. Judy's newest album is an eclectic mix of songs that speak to various aspects of navigating life during these times. And lastly, we have Backline Clinical Director Ari Jacobson. If you've watched these chats, you know Ari. He's instrumental in growing Backline's referral network and so much more. So as always, Ariel's going to be moderating the chat, so please feel free to add your questions and we'll try to get to them. Hey everyone, how's it going?
Very well.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us today for another one of these conversations, especially on a topic that is so important. And I think a lot of folks within the songwriter community probably can relate to. So I like to start these conversations with just a simple, how are you doing today in this moment? Rees?
I'm feeling really good. I'm home after a long, month-long tour and just sitting in my recording studio. Now I need to get back to work and, getting my songs down. It's good to be back with the family and the dogs and just looking forward to a gathering next week.
Wow.
Okay.
Awesome. Judy?
In this moment, it's funny because in addition to being a songwriter, I'm also a clinician. I'm a clinical social worker. So I like to get myself back to the moment. This moment is actually feeling pretty good. Like Rees, I'm coming off a heavy 2 weeks of performances and releasing my album and had a loss in the family. My mom had passed away. So I'm dealing with a lot of the feels and allowing myself in this moment to experience them. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're so grateful that you're here. Thank you so much. Ari, how are you doing in this moment?
I'm good. Amongst all the chaos of everything that's always going on, these conversations are always great. I love having these conversations and being a part of them. It's an hour to really just sit and enjoy this conversation. Today's will be a really good one. It's really important that we're having this. I'm thankful to be here.
Well, Ari, I actually would love to start the conversation for those watching. Can you explain what survivor's guilt is?
Sure. And as we tend to do in the beginning of these conversations, I always do like to mention to anybody listening or watching that if any of this resonates with you, please seek out help. There are a lot of people out there, Backline included, who can really help you find some of these resources. This should not replace any diagnosing. But this is something that can very much help if it helps resonate or even just checks off a couple boxes for you, something to look into. And if you're just not sure how to do that, please reach out to us or somebody to allow us to help you do that. But survivor's guilt, this is such an important conversation. It's something that I think deep down inside everyone has gone through at some level of just experience. Just the basic definition of it is survivor guilt's going to be an emotional distress that really comes after surviving any kind of situation where others may have not. It doesn't necessarily have to be something significantly traumatic. It could be an opportunity that you were given or got and somebody else may have not gotten. You may actually avoid harm that's impacted by others in the community, or it's even just like the perceived stress that you were able to avoid something that others did not get that opportunity. It usually comes with kind of the thought of like why them and not me, or even the opposite of why me and not them. And it kind of creates this like unearned safety that you feel like you got that others just never did. The misconception around it is that it only occurs with those life or death situations, even when it can emerge after pretty significant things like overdoses, accidents, but even things of like tour cancellations, industry losses, lost opportunities. And again, it's just the misconception is that it's always purely emotional, but as I'm sure we'll talk about later in this, but there's a lot of physiological and like physical reaction that you might have to carrying around some stress like this. And that's a very oversimplified definition of what a very complicated idea really is.
No, thank you so much. I think it's important to show the wide spectrum of what survivor's guilt can be, can look like. Rees and Judy, you both have very, very, again, you're kind of reflecting that spectrum. If y'all don't mind, could you share your stories around your own personal experience with survivor's guilt, and maybe the moment or moments that you realized that that was indeed what you were experiencing?
Rees? Oh, we're both.
My father-in-law used to say that guilt is the gift that keeps on giving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, for me, it's a varied and long story. I mean, it's, when I was a teenager, I was hanging out with a group of people that didn't survive that decade because of drugs, because of AIDS, because of self-destructive natures, and a lot of people in my family who have passed because of self-harm. And when I say my family, I'm adopted, so I have a very big family of adopted and found relatives, and I also accept other people into my life as family. And so it gets very complicated, and they're very deep relationships where I've lost a lot of people. And I kind of, actually, David Wilcox has a wonderful song on his latest record called, what is it? It's about how he survived and all of his friends over the years didn't. And he's thinking back of all the friends that have died, and why did they die? How did they die when they were so close to me? Like, how is it that, he said it starts off, I got shot at 2 different times, both times they missed. Lady Luck was feeling good that night, but I'm the one she kissed. And, so there's a lot of experiences that you kind of sit there and go, how did that just go by me? Right. I used to commute in New York down on the Taconic. Judy knows this pretty well, I'm sure. And 10 years there, I saw 6 or 7 fatalities on the Taconic in snowstorms, rainstorms, just around me. And it's like, that could have been me just now. And so that is a very visceral experience of what is also a kind of larger philosophical experience of life. And so I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't even know if I'm answering your question.
Absolutely. And also, I think it kind of shows all of the intangible feelings that grief and loss bring up. And Judy, I'd love to hear a bit about your story and experience with that.
Well, like Rees, I think we're similar generations. A lot of my peers who did not survive, just were not able to walk that path with me into adulthood, and it's almost like that imposter syndrome, but the reverse. It's like, and connected to worthiness. How did I dodge that bullet? I was at that same party. I might have been drinking from that same bottle. So a lot of that, but the thing that really rocked my emotional boat and made me more familiar than I would have liked with survivor's guilt, or survivor's overwhelm, as I call it, because it's a real myriad of emotions. I worked at the Trade Center, and just by the sheer luck of a decision to work remotely that day. I'd been in human resources. We were going through an acquisition and burning real midnight oil, and had come home the night before the World Trade Center attack, very late, to my 9-year-old hysterical daughter crying about a notebook check happening the next day. And I don't know what Mr. Links wants. And I thought, taking that kid off the bus myself, she's going to have her snack at her kitchen table. And dialed into the meeting to a busy signal. Fast forward, I lost 300 colleagues. Just because I didn't go in, and I would have been on the 99th floor, which was no longer, I would not have survived if I had gone in. anybody who went into the office that day. My office was on the 48th floor, but we had our meetings on the 99th floor, building 1, and there were no survivors of anyone who was there. Unless they ran down the building from the 48th floor. Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that it took a good 20 years before it wasn't a daily memory. And I wrote a song for at the memorial. I wrote a song at the memorial. It started when I looked at a colleague who had the daughter of a colleague holding a pin with her mom's picture on it. She had just been given permission to work remotely for work-life balance. And here I was, survivor's guilt, able to hug my child. And I knew that this young woman would not be able to hold hers. So I don't know where I'm going with this other than to say it's visceral. It happens throughout your body. Oh, that song that I wrote, I couldn't sing it for 15 years.
Wow.
Could not perform it. Yeah. Yeah. And I couldn't perform it because I had written it for her and her daughter, and I couldn't perform it until I repurposed it to be about me and not just about the trauma of 9/11, but just about the process of moving through any trauma.
Wow. Thank you both so much for sharing those experiences. I mean, I think it really just goes to show just how big grief and loss can be. And from incredible traumas to everyday traumas that happen in our lives. I think this topic is so vast and so complex and so layered. And so, Ari, I'd love to try to get a little bit more into this big topic, especially for those watching who maybe can, something that Rees or Judy has said has resonated for them and their lives. How can someone tell the difference between survivor's guilt and just general feelings of guilt or anxiety?
Sure. And Judy and Rees, thank you very much for sharing both that. I can't imagine, especially Judy, what you were just talking about. I can't imagine having gone through that. So thank you for sharing it and obviously writing that song and sharing it with the world. But survivor's guilt's going to be, kind of as Judy mentioned and Rees mentioned, there's a specific anchor. There's something that really happened. You'll notice a very quick switch as to like, maybe I was feeling okay and suddenly I'm not. It's usually tied to a loss or an event or even a person that is potentially not even in somebody's life anymore. The guilt's going to feel moral would be the word I would use rather than like situational. So it's, I don't deserve to be here versus I feel bad that something like this actually happened. Mm-hmm. And it will continue even when somebody either through therapy or through their own like reasoning has completely logically come to terms and they know that they are not to blame. It is something that was either out of their control or was never in their control or was just something that happened. And when somebody can really come to terms with that but yet still experience those feelings, that's when you're going to really start to see it being more of a survivor's guilt rather than that just a general feeling. And they can coexist. Survivor's guilt can coexist very much with grief. But it's very distinct because it centers around that like responsibility and worthiness. Like it's very much like this is something I should have done differently rather than like I'm just in a place where I'm not feeling well.
Thank you so much. Judy and Rees, I mean, Judy, you mentioned that it took you 20 years for this not to become a daily thought. But I am interested, Rees and Judy, how does this, or how did it show up in your day-to-day life? How did it impact?
For me, I mean, it was like an image. I was seeing the office. I was seeing just an image of the contents of my office possibly flying around the place, an image of colleagues running down the stairs. So, I mean, it was physiologically just a flooding over of of emotion when I wasn't expecting it, and the body just saying, you're not done. Sometimes more gently than others. But it didn't last long. It just was present. And impacted my ability to experience joy in its fullness, to be really present. I think for initially the first 10 years, it was hard to feel really, really present. And to your point, Ari, that sense of worthiness of like, do I have a right to be enjoying this moment with my family, with my dog on a hike, and not able necessarily to articulate it that clearly to myself, oh, I'm not feeling worthy, but just that holding back on allowing myself to fully enjoy things and engage.
Yeah, it seems at times like you put like a scorecard on life where it's, well, that person has A, B, C, D, E, and I only have A, B, C, so therefore they deserve something more than I did.
Right.
Rather than even at a smaller, like even if we just talked about like you got an opportunity to play a gig that now your best friend who you've been touring with doesn't get. And if you kind of take a step back and look at it, you can logically be like, oh, well, I did that late night event that it got me a connection that this, and this, but it's that irrational feeling on the backside where it's like, I know that I deserve this, or I know that I did not have control of this, but it feels like I'm still not scoring high enough to be able to have earned it.
Correct.
Which kind of brings us to the rationality of perception, right? This is what we perceive as our due. This is what we perceive as the due of others. I have no idea. Excuse me. And I love, Avi, that you were talking about in or out of control, right? When we acknowledge that in fact we're not in control of how our emotion is processing this, or how, Judy, I can't even imagine if I was reminded of, say, the death of my brother every time I turned on the damn TV for a whole decade. Oh my gosh. That's a whole. That's a shit storm. I'm glad I did not.
Totally, yeah. That part was rough. And to even see that language, I knew my kid was watching it, and she had written a letter. I still have the letter. That she sold donuts for the Red Cross, and her language, and then the firemen went into the building, and a moment later they vanished in a thick thing of smoke, and you knew that people were singing this over and over. So there's no real escaping from it when it's then in the media.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I'd like to kind of, Judy, you also mentioned that you wrote a song shortly after, but then could not perform it for 15 years until you were able to maybe internalize it and shift that perspective. I'd like to ask you both, how has survivor's guilt influenced your songwriting? Whether influenced or helped you through the healing process?
I'll let you go, Rees.
I think both. I got to rewind on that one because music is my primary language. Songwriting, I've been writing songs about my feelings since I was 4 or 5 years old. It's to some degree, there is therapy in that. I think all songwriters write when they're upset, when they're hurt, that's why we've got so many damn songs about heartbreak, right? It's like, it's the easiest way to write a song. It's like, oh my God, or if you're really, these emotions are really bubbling up, that's it. The craft is writing constantly and around that, and being able to write about other things than just your feelings, but in imbuing your creations with the real and authentic, the feelings, right? Like it's got to be, it's a combination. But I think we all as songwriters write about our trauma. We all write to process in some way or another. And so for years, I know that I've always done that. And those songs may be written, and it's kind of like my therapy session is over. we can move on now. I don't need to perform that song ever. It can be too personal. The flip side is, and I think this is why Ariel asked me to come and do this this podcast or discussion with you all, is that I a couple of years ago I was at a writing retreat, really, really open, very, very creative environment. It was really fertile, and I had a waking dream. I woke from a dream where a dear friend who was very, very self-destructive, was an addict, and I couldn't have him in my life because that exposed me to things, maybe going back to my addictions, but also it wasn't healthy, right? And he died, probably a fentanyl overdose, possibly suicide. They didn't find him for 3 weeks because he had nobody. So, right, this is a guy that I worked with for more than 20 years and was a dear friend. And he came to me in a dream and he sang me a song, and I was able to pen it the minute I woke up.
Wow.
And that's the title track of my last record.
Wow.
I went and I started playing it immediately. And for that song, the performance of the song is a process of dealing with the trauma of and the survivor's guilt of having lost this guy, Dale. I don't think that I would normally have, if I'd written a song about him, but it really feels like he wrote the song and handed it to me. Does that, there's a kind of a spiritual nature to it there. And so it became very important that I do sing that to honor at least a part of our friendship.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that's so powerful, Rees. I mean, just your being open, the openness you had to receive it, and then to immediately pen that. I'm curious about that. What was going on there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure it's my psyche. I don't actually think that the spirit of this guy showed up in my bedroom and sang me a song, right? And it is sung from my point of view. Did I abandon you? Right. And it's how I'm handling that part. But at the same time, if it was such a visceral and very, I don't normally remember my dreams, let alone remember my own lyrics. And I came out of that thing and I was able to pen this.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
So somehow you were in that place where you were receptive to that. That talk about making lemonade out of lemons, man. Like serious. That can be the beauty of that vulnerability, that ripping down the skin of that onion that I think trauma can create.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was the question?
No, I mean, basically just like how have you been able to use songwriting as a tool through your healing process, or as Rees was talking about, really just the processing of it?
Yeah. Well, I have 2 songs related to 9/11. The first was, Beyond the Ash and Steel, which was the title of my second album, which was, just the process of moving through beyond the ash and steel. And the second I had written a couple of years ago, talking about the few days after 9/11 in New York. If you remember, everyone was so nice to, and polite and quiet. And the song is called At Our Best because we were at our best during the worst of times, and marveling at that profound reverence, that had fallen on the city and all of us. And so for me, trauma made me open and receptive to the depth of emotions that happen with that. And so I think it's probably also similar to Rees's experience. It creates that ability to receive what might be out there, psychic wise, whatever is creating whatever creative energy that is coming into it. I think my nerve endings were that much sharper as I was starting to work my way through the grief, not past it, never past it, but just
right. through. Right, which I think is such an important difference to point out. Ari, for those watching, how can writing or creativity be a healthy part of the healing process? How can that help folks?
At times it's this weird battle that you kind of live with, of like, if I'm doing something and I'm moving through it, not past it, am I dishonoring the person who we've lost? Am I discrediting the fact that the other person may have not had the experience that I have? You start to kind of compare your art or your output even. So it's not even about the quality. It's starting to like get some more quantity out, just to be able to say that you're getting back on the horse and getting things moving. But it almost like creates this like paralyzing internal pressure. So writing and creativity can really actually help with the other side of it, with healing, because it can actually start to shape that grief and find a way to reconnect with the artist or the meaning of whatever it is that happened. Because even in all situations, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's true like understood meaning as to what happened. You kind of have to find it for yourself, and the meaning for you versus the meaning for me and how we each interpret it is going to be very different. So by being creative in your own way, it allows you to develop and shape what that creativity, or what what it actually feels like and what it looks like, so that way you have something to relate to. It can kind of serve as that like ritual of transforming guilt into gratitude or purpose. And then if anything, especially in this space, it's not uncommon to also then like co-write or co-produce. And by finding somebody who maybe has experience with some of this, or just somebody that you can really trust to be vulnerable with, it gives you that outlet of like, I don't have to hold on to this alone. Even this, this studio, it just feels comfortable for me to be in, and the people at the studio make me feel warm and inviting. So like now I can express this with them, but not the world. But it's something I'm not carrying on my own.
There's also I have a friend who calls it cardio spelunking. That when we write, and especially when we write a lot, I mean, this is part of, for me, this is my therapy, this is my craft, this is my process, right? I wake up every morning, I get caffeinated enough that I can hold a pen and I write something. And it might be an essay on politics. It might be sitting down at the piano and writing a song. It might be crafting a letter to somebody that I needed to clarify something and get through something with, right? So maybe somebody I've had an argument with, whatever it might be. But every morning it's getting this and this onto paper. And when the cardio spelunking is really, you go back to that piece of paper later and you realize, oh, that was me trying to tell myself something. That I was processing this and I didn't even realize at the time that I was. But reviewing our work, reviewing the craft later, we'll often see something in our song that our heart was telling us we needed to know.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really beautiful, I mean, that's kind of my, I think that's probably my form of therapy, really, is that, and hopefully I don't project that onto the world. Like, here are my therapy songs, and here's another album of what's wrong with me, but that it can get me to a point where I can write a song that is more universal, that is more a shared experience. And that's a song that I can share on a record. Anyway, I just, it's, David's concept of cardio spelunking has been, I don't know, it's something that's always been in my life, and I didn't have a name for it until a couple of years ago when he mentioned the conversation. I was like, oh yeah, that's what we do.
So Rees, do you find that some of those songs that you've written that, oh, I've written this, it felt good to write this, it's authentic, but you're not prepared to necessarily bring that to something that, or take that and perform it. Do you ever find that they then evolve and become something that is more universally relevant, that you feel that you can morph and share?
Yeah, I think I find if I listen, if I go through my notebooks, song to song to song to song, I have a group of songs that are basically thematically familiar, and maybe sound alike, and to put them all out, it'd be like, oh, every song that Rees writes sounds the same. We have to find, right? But yeah, it's it's almost like over time I will go back and gestate on the thought, on the vibe, on the emotion. And after a while, I can clarify it in a way that I can communicate it with other people, that they'll go like, oh yeah, I've been there. Or at least I can understand where you are.
Yeah. I feel the same. That happens to me often.
Awesome.
Something that you said, Rees, really resonated with me. I lost my father to suicide 10 years ago. And as a songwriter, for the first, it took me years to really be able to even want to write or know how to write. And then the first, those years, those songs were just too raw. They were not universal at all. And so, I'd send them to my producer, and I feel bad now. He probably had no idea what to do with those songs, because they were so, I needed to write them for me,
right?
Not necessarily put them out into the world. And eventually I was able to distill some of those components and create an album that hopefully was a bit more universal than just, this is my experience. But I as a songwriter, I'd like to ask you did you ever feel pressure to turn your pain into art? Because I certainly did. I at least within the first few years of losing my father, I felt like I need to do something with this to create some good out of this tremendous loss. I'm wondering if you ever dealt with that.
Well, I think there was the push for myself to try to find meaning, the magnitude. I'd never experienced anything of this magnitude, and to the songwriting, I think was a vehicle to really help me in any writing. I was, just writing, knowing that a lot of it was just going to be too personal to put out there. But again, it was I felt it was kind of outside of myself. It needed to come out. It was in many ways involuntary. But that was the process.
So Terra, could you repeat that question? I'm not sure that I'm catching the right.
Yeah. No, basically just wondering if you ever felt pressure, really from yourself or maybe external, to turn that pain into art.
Okay. So art or media?
Anything. But
it's a very different thing.
That
right?
is, that's true.
I think there is an internal desire to turn all of my emotion into art, to create a question in somebody else's experience of what I create that will bring them to a point of understanding where I'm at, but also will bring themselves to a point of questioning where they are. That to me is art. Now, a lot of the work that I do as a songwriter is design. And in design, I'm trying to answer a need. So I'm creating songs that will make you feel a certain way by design. So for me, these are very different things. I think I work to create art around the deeper emotional pieces. And I'm not so sure that's something I would ever put up in a gallery per se, in a place for people to see. Unless I had gotten to a point where I was comfortable enough sharing that, because it's going to start a conversation. And the conversation can be great, but the conversation can be also very, very uncomfortable. And am I up to that? Does that make sense? It's they're totally. It's almost like it's like there's a Venn diagram here, right? Of these things that are art, that are just our own kind of psychological process, and that are media that we're going to market this. This is going to hopefully pay the rent. This over here is going to, be respected by people we respect. This thing is just going to make it so that I can make it through the day.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that outside of music, because we've talked a lot about how healing the songwriting process has been outside of music. What has helped you in your day-to-day with your feelings of survivor's guilt?
I'm just, my initial thing is like burying my face in my dog.
That's very real. Yes.
Tactile, the six senses for self-soothing, a lot of real basic self-soothing, walking, just bringing myself back repeatedly to, well, also that sense of creating safety in that moment. Right now, I'm okay. I'm holding a cup of tea, or I have my hand on my dog. Just real, encouraging myself to be in the moment. The other thing that helped was I found myself in search for authenticity. I think that was like my elixir of healing. I found myself with a decreased tolerance where I was finding that. And there were some relationships or situations that I felt able to divest myself of because it was not supporting that healing. I don't know, Rees, if you or Terra, if you had that too, in your journey through healing. But for me, that was very much there.
When my brother, who was much younger, he was a year older than my own son, when he committed suicide, I withdrew from, my wife and I have talked about this and processed it. It's been almost, we're going on 14 years. And for the first couple of years, I poured myself into my work. And at that time, I was a college professor in the Bronx. And so I was pouring myself into my students. And it was a visceral, I need to help other people. People sometimes in the same age group as my son and my brother had been. And that was, but I think the biggest thing was breaking a sweat. I just had to work at things. I was doing carpentry. I was building furniture. I started building guitar. I just was making things.
Wow.
And being a maker, including in academia, I was making programs. I was developing new things. I was trying to create something outside myself. Mm-hmm. And then I could look at that and I could see myself, and I was all right. I existed still.
Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, after losing my dad, it really made me reflect on my own mental health. Before then, I can really relate. I used music as my therapy. And then it got to the point where I was like, all right, I need a little something more personally. And so that was the first time I really took therapy seriously for myself. And Ari, I'd like to ask you, for those watching, what therapeutic approaches are out there that can really help, or that you've seen in your experience help folks?
So there are a lot of very research-based therapeutic approaches that you can find providers who can do. So there's EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization or reprocessing. Thank you. I always forget the R. And there's newer treatments like brain spotting. There's different types of therapy. The very standard one is the cognitive behavioral therapy, which is going to kind of just get you started on the journey of them working through some of those deeper rooted traumas or experiences. And then there are little nuanced therapies. There's art therapy, there's music therapy, there's narrative therapy, where you can kind of recontrol your own story. But the reason I'm kind of pushing through these quickly is the number one thing to find is a therapist that you feel comfortable with and working with. There are going to be some very highly trained therapists who are trauma experts that may not be the right fit for you, and all you need to do is find somebody that you can open up to and trust and learn to re-understand and kind of re-navigate whatever has happened to you. So I really always advocate to find the right therapist first, and then if you need something more specialized, then you can go from there. But in the bigger picture of any kind of major life event, trauma, major change, the goal is to be able to talk about it and to get into a place where you are not necessarily comfortable about it. We're not moving, we're not getting through. Judy, I'm butchering how you said it. We're working through the trauma. We're not going to ever get over it. It's not going to change the past.
Right.
So that's really it. It's finding that one person, or even in a group setting, finding the space where you feel the most comfortable to be able to work through it on your own path and at your own speed.
Yeah. I think what happens with trauma, and Ari, I'm sure you found that, it kind of does this to your perception of a lot. And there are a lot of distortions of how your perspective on what happened, what songwriting can do in some modalities of therapy, even narrative therapy, where you throw down what happened, and somebody who you have that relationship with can help you kind of go through and kind of challenge some of those distortions, and help you create a different, to reframe the narrative to one that's more helpful and truthful, and to help you on a healing path through.
Have any of you had the experience of taking that song and then recording, and then hearing it and hearing yourself for the first time? I found that, like, I've recorded songs sometimes just by myself, but also often it happens more when I'm working with another producer, somebody else outside of the song, who will be like, I don't really believe what you're singing right now. Like, I love the lyrics, but it doesn't feel like your performance is real. And then going back in and being like, okay, where was I when I wrote this?
Mm-hmm.
And then it just it's like opening up a fire hose of, okay, that's that emotion again. And then you go back into the recording room and you listen to playback and you're like, oh, that was what it was about. That is, and then, I mean, for me, the recording studio, the recording medium, to some degree, is that it allows me to step outside of myself and evaluate feelings. I don't know if that happens with you all.
Oh yeah, gives you that feedback of, where you hear the emotion in your voice, the timbre, all of that. Those that give you an indication of where you were or weren't.
Yeah,
Right.
And it's powerful.
So powerful. And I just have to say, Ari mentioned EMDR. I started EMDR for the first time this year, and it has completely changed my life in a way that no other therapeutic approaches that I've tried in the past has, specifically around trauma. Specific events I felt very, very stuck in for over a decade. I have since been able to move through, as we continue to talk about moving through and not past. So, and therapeutic approaches are going to work differently for others. And I have found that EMDR has really, really helped, through my journey. I know we only have a few more minutes, so I'd like to ask Rees and Judy, is there any advice that you would share with maybe folks watching this, who might be dealing with their own form of survivor's guilt? Maybe they're in the beginning of their journey with this feeling. Is there anything that you would like to share or wish that someone had shared with you?
That the feelings will change. A reminder that level of pain you're feeling will shift. And because we can feel like, am I ever going to feel anything other than this agony? And that it does. So that might be the first time I'd share.
I agree. That this is evolution, right? The trite cliche is, what doesn't kill me, right? Will make me stronger, right? But I found that this baggage is part of what makes me able to empathize with other human beings. Other people experience this. Other people are going through, have gone through, and will go through what you're going through. So this can be a language that you can speak with them.
Right.
And they'll understand. So
That's
there
right.
are people who understand,
Right.
not simply because they're professionals, but also because they've gone through this too. right? And you're not alone.
Right. As Mr. Rogers says, find the helpers, find the understanders.
Yes. And to your point, Rees, I do feel, there's layers to yourself that you discover through as you go through this. And I have found that there is a well of wisdom that grief and loss allows you to tap into. And so, as you were saying, I have found that I've been able to be there for those who maybe go through similar experiences, and I can at least empathize. I may not know exactly what to say in that moment, but I know the feeling, and I can be there in a way that I absolutely would not be able to be there for had I not experienced that type of trauma. So there is I always say grief is my greatest teacher, because I do feel that I've been able to access certain parts of myself I didn't even know existed through that. So,
yeah.
Ari, last question for those watching. If folks are experiencing this or think they may be experiencing this, but maybe are a bit just afraid to kind of start that process of reaching out to someone, is there any advice that you would share?
You do not need to be in crisis to seek help. If something seems a bit off, or something seems like you're just curious to poke around inside and see what might be not right, it's a great time to look in to see what is available for you. Therapy is not always the answer. There are other resources and videos and conversations like this that can at least start you and see if this is the right path or if this is something that resonates with you. Healing also doesn't erase the past. So we're going in this, you want to try and just understand how you're carrying it and how maybe you can put down some of the pieces so you're not carrying it all the time. And the number one thing is, if you are feeling off, you deserve support. If you do not know where to find it, come find a place like Backline or other organizations, or if you do not qualify for Backline and you're wondering if resources exist, reach out to Backline and we will point you in the right direction. There are a lot of really great organizations and people out there who can help you find help. And sometimes finding help or getting help about how to find help, sometimes I would argue is the most challenging task with all this. So take the opportunity when you have it and don't wait till the last second.
Thank you all so much for being vulnerable and honest, and for sharing your just profound experiences with all of us. It truly is going to mean and means so much to those that are maybe just starting their journey with survivor's guilt, or just folks who have been through this and are going through it. I think it always helps hearing other perspectives and just knowing that you're not alone with these heavy feelings. So thank you so much, Rees, Judy, Ari, for taking the time out of your day for this conversation.
Thank you so much.
It was good to meet you all.
Thank you, everybody,
for what you're doing.
Thank you. Hey, Ariel.
I'm always muted when I pop back in. Hi, Terra.
Oh
boy,
that was just an incredible, just incredible to be able to share space with folks who have gone through unimaginable circumstances and have been able to really use their songwriting as a vehicle to navigate some of the most traumatic experiences that a human can.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, as I was listening to this conversation, I was thinking about how, life is complex and we're never a single set of circumstances or experiences. And especially in this conversation, I was just thinking about all the past conversations that we've had and all the topics that we touched on just in this 1 hour that we've focused on in some of the other ones. And, we move through life having experiences and hopefully learning from them and, finding pathways to healing and finding pathways to promote healing for other people who are maybe a little earlier on in their journey on those things. Maybe, as songwriters, that's part of, yes, we use the songs as our own therapy, as Rees said. It's absolutely true. I can't imagine someone just coming to the work of a songwriter and just stumbling upon it like, wow, I want to build a song, without having to at first come to it needing to create a song. But as we have these conversations, I'm just thinking, this is the work of artists, that we take all the experiences that we have, we use it to heal ourselves, hopefully create some healing in the world. I don't know. I feel there's so much about this conversation I want to talk about, but I'm just churning with all the different ideas that were presented.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much, and it's just always so insightful to be able to speak to other creatives and to see like how their songwriting has helped them in their journey or is helping them in their journey. I mean, Judy talking about the song that she wrote 20 years ago, and it took 15 years to be able to sing it, and it was only after she was able to shift that perspective and internalize it that she was able to perform. Was just something I think I'll be thinking about for a while. And because I think as songwriters, we've all been there to some extent of being able to write something that maybe is just too fresh, too raw, too hard to perform.
Too close, right?
Too close. Yeah.
Yeah. When Judy and I first started talking over email, exploring, what would be, a good topic to bring her into this conversation for, we started talking about 9/11. My dad also worked in the trade center, but he had we had moved as a family a few years before that back down, out of state. And I've tried to write about that event as well. And I've tried to talk with my dad about it as well, sort of trying to understand, what did he think about his colleagues that were still at the company? And he's not a songwriter, it's like he kind of brushed off the conversation, like, oh, that was, a long time ago, and I don't know what happened to that person, just that kind of thing. And, it was meaningful for me to hear about Judy's experience. Because I have thought about those people that I had met when I was, a kid, but I had visited my dad at his office, and Rees talking about the AIDS crisis, and of course, like the loss of friends to suicide, to addiction, you talking about your father as that's come up in a few of our conversations here. All of these things, I think probably like the other folks who are tuning in to listen to these conversations, like you start reviewing in your mind your own experiences and how have I blockaded my heart from really engaging with that loss? Have I allowed myself to digest or engage with that experience in a deep way, or has it been too hard for me? Have I tried to move, that it came up a few times in this conversation, the idea of moving through versus moving past, and I don't know what I'm saying here exactly, but these are all the things I'm thinking about right here.
I mean, it's a lot to think about, but yeah, that idea of, when I first lost my dad, I just wanted to move past. There were other things happening in my music career, big things, and so I initially was just like, what, I just want to move past this. I want, and that, of course, that doesn't work. You have to go through it. You have to process, like you said, you have to unblock your heart and do the hard work of that grief inevitably forces you to do. And so it is just a really important reminder that there's no way around it. you do have to do the hard work to process it.
And thank God for the songwriters and the artists who have come
Yeah.
before us that have given us language and a framework and the emotional expression to help us move through it. And it's not that we, a lot of experiences in our lives we would not choose, but they happen because we get this opportunity to be on this planet for a few years. And, thank goodness for the other artists that came before. And, may we also help to contribute to the healing of people who need that coming up behind us.
Absolutely.
Well, Terra, thank you again for leading the conversation.
Thank you so much. These conversations truly make my month. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll see you next time.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And happy Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for being here, for tuning in. I hope that you will participate in the conversation by chiming in the chat. We would love to hear from you. You can always reach out to us at hello@sonafoundation.com. And, as I said before, just stay plugged in to what we're doing over here, and we will let you know about the next Fireside chat. Big thanks to our songwriter guests this week or this month, I should say. And I wish you, on behalf of the SONA Foundation, very happy Thanksgiving or whatever else is coming up in your path. Take good care.